Welcome Vintage Hollywood Archive. She starred in Kitten with a Whip, but these days, actress Ann-Margret's the woman with the daredevil pussycat. She's one of the most famous sex symbols and actresses of the 1960s and beyond. Though publicly perceived as a sex kitten, she was shy as a child and remains devout in her personal life. Why Ann-Margret chose her husband over Elvis Presley. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you're new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Vintage Hollywood Archive channel. Ann-Margret, a timeless beauty. She was billed as a female version of Elvis Presley. Not many stars can pull off the whole first-name-only thing. Before Cher, before Madonna, and before Shakira, there was Ann-Margret. The Swedish-born Ann-Margret began her film career as the ingenue in Frank Capra's film Pocket of Miracles, holding her own opposite luminaries Bette Davis and Glenn Ford, an omen certainly of her considerable presence and ability. A more important personal success was achieved with the musical Bye Bye Birdie, in which Ann-Margret exhibited her abundant skill as a singer and dancer, energizing the film with her powerful sexuality as well as her innocence and fresh charm. A woman making her own way and finding her own voice, both as a legendary performer and a woman of guts, humor, energy, and inspiration. Ann-Margret gives viewers an exclusive glimpse into a very private life, offering a revealing look at her relationships, triumphs, and trials, both in and out of the spotlight. Going strong in its fifth decade, as a movie star, she appeared in more than 50 feature films, and as a stage entertainer, she performed as a headlining act in showrooms and theaters around the world. To a lesser extent, she found time periodically for television and recordings. Early in her career, emphasis was placed on her attractiveness and sexual appeal. She was marketed as a kind of red-haired American version of Brigitte Bardot. But her talent allowed her to outlive that image, and eventually, while working regularly, she earned Academy, Emmy, and Grammy Award nominations, as well as several Golden Globes in recognition of her film and TV roles. Ann-Margret was born as Ann-Margret Olsson in Valsjöbyn, Jämtland County, Sweden, to Anna Regina and Carl Gustaf Olsson. She later described her city as a small town of lumberjacks and farmers high up near the Arctic Circle. She was nicknamed Slugger. Her father worked in the United States during his youth and moved there again in 1942, working with the Johnson Electrical Company, while his wife and daughter stayed behind. She came to America at age 6. They moved to the United States in November 1946, and her father took her to Radio City Music Hall on the day they arrived. They settled just outside of Chicago in Wilmette, Illinois. Meanwhile, Ann-Margret began displaying an interest in singing and dancing from the age of 3. She became a naturalized citizen of the United States in 1949 and took her first dance lessons at the Marjorie Young School of Dance, showing natural ability from the start, easily mimicking all the steps. Her parents were supportive, and her mother handmade all her costumes. Her mother was a funeral parlor receptionist after her husband suffered a severe injury on his job. She continued at Northwestern University in 1959 as a member of the Kappa Alpha Theta. She started her acting career in her early years. As a young talent, she featured on the Morris B. Sachs Amateur Hour and Don McNeil's Breakfast Club. Among Friends, Wa-Moo Show of 1960, a collector's item, even though she only appeared as a dancer in the production and was not featured. After finishing her freshman year in June 1960, she and the Subtle Tones went to Las Vegas for a club engagement that fell through, then continued to Los Angeles, where they found bookings. At the end of the summer, she dropped out of college to pursue her career, while her fellow students returned to school. She earned her first recording contract with Warner Bros. Records, which released 2 singles and an album. It's the Most Happy Sound, billed to Ann-Margret and the Jada Quartet. But the records didn't sell. In the summer of 1957, while competing in a TV talent contest in Chicago, she was seen by Ted Mack, host of the national series The Original Amateur Hour, who put her on the show. Later that summer, she spent a month singing with the Danny Ferguson Band at the Mulebach Hotel in Kansas City. Her first recording came in January 1959. It was an amateur effort, an album made of a show put on by the Tri-Ship Club at the New Trier High School and released on a limited basis. Lanyap 59 presents Be My Guest. She was heard singing Irving Berlin's Heat Wave. After successfully filming a screen test at 20th Century Fox in 1961, she signed a 7-year contract with the company. She made a film debut in Pocket of Miracles, a remake of the 1933 film Lady for a Day, for the United Artists. Ann-Margret played the bad girl role of Emily, opposite Pat Boone and Bobby Darin in the 1962 remake of the Rodger and Hammerstein's musical State Fair. Here, she got to put on film for the first time her singing and dancing abilities as well as sexy appeal. On April 9, 1962, she appeared on the Academy Awards telecast to sing one of the year's nominated songs, the title theme from Bachelor in Paradise. Her torrid song and dance routine stopped the show and increased her stardom exponentially. RCA tried to take advantage of that notoriety by sending her back to the studio and titling the resulting album The Vivacious One, but the record was not successful. She had more luck on the silver screen, where she was cast in the film adaptation of the stage musical Bye Bye Birdie, a send-up of Elvis Presley, in which she played a Midwestern teenager who wins the chance to bestow one last kiss on a Presley-like teen idol before he goes into the army. Her part was built up considerably from what it had been on Broadway, as she opened and closed the film singing a newly written title song, had another solo in How Lovely to Be a Woman, and joined other cast members on half a dozen other songs. Ann-Margret is a wow, wrote Variety, and when Bye Bye Birdie opened in April 1963, it was a hit, its soundtrack album peaking at number 2 and remaining in the charts over a year. She earned a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress, Musical or Comedy. Bye Bye Birdie brought her to the limelight, but despite her success in movie musicals, Ann-Margret was not able to translate that popularity into her solo records. Meanwhile, she was achieving a kind of immortality by voicing the character of Ann-Margret on the popular primetime animated TV series The Flintstones. Having worked with an Elvis Presley imitator in Bye Bye Birdie, she next teamed up with The Real Thing, co-starring in the Presley film Viva Las Vegas, which opened in May 1964. In Viva Las Vegas, one of the most underrated musicals of the American cinema, Ann-Margret played opposite Elvis Presley, providing Presley one of his few memorable co-stars. Indeed, in Viva Las Vegas, Ann-Margret exuded an undulating sexuality and unbridled energy so overwhelming that her musical scenes with Presley reflected the zeitgeist of the sexual revolution of the 60s. Her singing career was illustrious, which was pretty evident from the fact that she was billed as a female version of Elvis Presley. She had strawberry blonde hair, sparkling green eyes, and a voice that was described as vibrant, contralto, lisp, and breathless. She was also chosen by the Empire magazine in 1995 as one of the 100 sexiest stars in film history. Likewise, she ranked 10th on the list. While developing the sensational musical hit Viva Las Vegas, Elvis was introduced to his co-star. George Sidney made the fateful introduction. "Elvis Presley, I'd like you to meet a wonderful young lady, Ann-Margret. Ann-Margret, this is Elvis Presley." In an autobiography, Ann-Margret noted, "The significance was lost on Elvis and me. I reached my hand and he shook it gently. The two got off to a lighthearted start. I've heard a lot about you," we said at the same time, which made us laugh and broke the ice. Immediately after their warm introduction, the rumors started flying. And they were not unfounded. The two had an affair despite the fact that Presley was supposed to wed Priscilla. Both parties felt very aware of this. Ann-Margret followed Viva Las Vegas with a series of films that cemented, rather unfortunately for her reputation as a sex kitten. Films such as Kitten with a Whip and Bus Riley's Back in Town created a rather tawdry image which critics of the time found necessary to ridicule. Not surprisingly, her often sensitive performances, as for instance the vulnerable wife in Once a Thief opposite Alain Delon, were ignored. The critical nadir to her career occurred at the end of the 60s, when, after a series of foreign films disrespected by Hollywood, she returned to the United States with a motorcycle melodrama, produced by her husband Roger Smith. Rather unfairly, Ann-Margret had become a joke. She first met actor Roger Smith around the time she appeared in her first feature film. Barely an adult, she hadn't yet established herself as the sexy female lead. Smith, then in his late 20s, was starring in television's 77 Sunset Strip. The saving grace for Smith was a chance encounter with Ann-Margret. "Every other woman I met was falling all over me," Smith told New York Magazine of 1976 of his first impression of Ann. "But this innocent, fresh-faced beauty only spoke to me when I spoke to her, and the rest of the time ignored me. I was impressed." They wouldn't meet again until 5 years later. By then, Ann-Margret's career had peaked and appeared to be on the decline. 77 Sunset Strip was over, and Roger Smith was separated from his wife of 9 years, Australian actress Victoria Shaw. They began dating after Smith invited her to the San Francisco nightclub where he was singing. He took her out to dinner the next night, then for a ride on his private plane the following day. Due to the success of Viva Las Vegas, many shipped her and Elvis Presley at the time, but it was obvious that Smith was the man for her. "The man that I married is the man I knew I was going to marry on the third date," Ann-Margret said. Her parents reportedly disapproved of their relationship, likely because Smith, a father of 3, was technically still married. But that didn't stop the pair from tying the knot in a Las Vegas civil ceremony 2 years after Smith's divorce was final. On May 8, 1967, Ann-Margret, 26, and Roger Smith, 34, were married in a cigarette-smoke-filled room at the Riviera Hotel. "This is not the way I envisioned my wedding," she later said. "I think everyone thought I was pregnant because I was crying throughout the whole thing. But we did it." Smith produced several of Margaret's films and TV specials. Smith, with acting all but behind him by the early 1970s, formed a production company called Rogue Allen Productions with his former manager, Alan Carr. The company produced a series of successful films. As Smith's career behind the scenes progressed, however, he focused more on his wife's career, producing numerous stage shows and TV specials for her. They supported each other through life-threatening scares. Through the years, Smith and Margaret helped each other in a variety of different ways. For Smith, she gave him an opportunity to move away from acting and deal with his debilitation while maintaining a career in show business. He became her business manager to increase her profits and to allow for them to constantly be close to one another. "When I met Ann-Margret, I felt happy for the first time in my life," said Smith. "Once I found Ann-Margret, I couldn't stand to be without her, and surprisingly, she couldn't stand to be without me." This included a frightening experience in 1972, when Margaret fell 22 feet off an elevated platform and suffered a broken arm, cheekbone, and jawbone. Smith flew a plane, one he allegedly stole in a panic, to Lake Tahoe to retrieve his wife and rushed her to surgeons in UCLA for treatment. After 10 weeks of medical care, she returned to the stage good as new. She couldn't work for about 10 weeks. The facial reconstructive surgery she'd undergone required wiring her jaws shut. During that time, she was on a liquid diet, and Smith insisted friends carry wire cutters anytime she went out with them. In case of emergency, they could cut the wires. Amazingly, Ann-Margret returned to the stage almost completely normal again. "She wanted to be like her father, and I wanted to do it for her," Smith recalled. "It's corny but true. By doing what she wanted, I liked myself much better. Being with her was much more important than all my childhood dreams about being a famous actor." Margaret added, "He had more faith in me than I did. One of the main things about my view of his was that he would protect me." Over their decades together, the business and marital partners have leaned on each other during trying times marked by substance abuse, life-altering injury, and chronic illness. Around the time Ann-Margret was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her role in 1971's Carnal Knowledge, she was dependent on pills and alcohol, unable to distinguish fantasy from reality. In 1980, Smith was diagnosed with the rare neuromuscular disease myasthenia gravis, a chronic autoimmune condition that can cause difficulty swallowing and speaking, and muscle weakness in the arms and legs. But through it all, Ann-Margret, 76, says her marriage to Smith, 84, has lasted, as she told People, "We both want it to work." Well, that and their shared sense of self-deprecating humor. "We get into weird situations," she said. "If you can't laugh at yourself, you are in trouble. We laugh before everyone else does." Ann-Margret's confluence of sexuality with innocence and vulnerability is even more appealing as she moves through her mature middle age. Yet if other performers who have drawn upon sexual personas or aggressive femininity have tended to display a coyness or self-consciousness, if they have not self-destructed like Marilyn Monroe, Ann-Margret must be seen as always projecting a natural grace and intelligence, coupled with a sincerity and honesty so straightforward and unapologetic as to be almost unnerving. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new here.